Welcome to the Rimworld mod rundown. We'll be taking a quick look at what you can expect to see from Vanilla Chemfuel Expanded. For starters, you'll need to own the additional workshop content, Vanilla Expanded Framework, and Harmony. A nice straightforward one today, which will always draw comparisons to Rimmerfella by Dubs, so let's not tiptoe around it and get it out of the way up front. Vanilla Chemfuel Expanded makes use of pipe networks and storage solutions. It adds a new underground resource as well as the refinement process to make it into standard chemfuel. Rimmerfella, on the other hand, adds a host of new resources and branches of production. Opting for using crude oil as its base resource, it allows it to be crafted into things like Nutramine, Synthread, and new plastic-based or Kevlar materials. It's why I'm covering Chemfuel Expanded first. It's a much more no-nonsense approach to the resource in question and adds basically no power creep. I'll be covering Rimmerfella eventually, I just need to get over some of the artwork. It's not exactly bad, there's just something about it that makes me...
Jesus Christ!
So what are we playing with? All of the new bits unlocked with this mod will be unlocked through the biofuel refining research, but you'll also need to have unlocked microelectronics, deep drilling, and the ground penetrating scanner to make full use of what's on offer here. First up, you've got a couple of pipe networks, and I think I'm right in saying that this mod was the OG for actually using it. It was essentially a showcase of its potential. These pipe networks can be used for Chemfuel and the newly introduced resource of Deep Chem. As with most pipe networks, you'll have visible and underground pipes, tanks, taps, and drains. So you've got all of the options that you need to, somewhat safely, deposit, store, and collect these volatile materials. Just make sure that you've got your stockpiles set up correctly to avoid people constantly grabbing fuel from the tap and pouring it into the drain, which makes the network drop a fresh stack from the tap again, and they repeat the process endlessly.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
So what is Deep Chem? This is what you're going to need your ground penetrating scanner for. There are pockets of thick, goopy, compressed chemfuel known as Deep Chem underneath the earth. As it's in a compressed state, you're going to find that it's more explosive than normal chemfuel, so caution is strongly advised if you're keeping this around the base outside of a dedicated storage. You're given a couple of options on how to extract this Deep Chem. You can use a standard deep drill to collect it in the old-fashioned way, which seems a little odd given how volatile I just said that it was, and now you're using a red hot drill bit to dig directly into it. It seems like a questionable choice at best. The other option is using a new structure called a Deep Chem pump jack. Unlike a deep drill, this doesn't have a limited range underneath it. If you put it onto a cluster of Deep Chem, it'll suck up the entire deposit, starting at the furthest tiles and working its way inwards. Not only that, the pump jack can also be minified and moved around to another deposit once it's completed its job, meaning you don't need to build a new one of these every time a new Deep Chem pocket is discovered. Of course, it being a resource that's discovered by a ground penetrating scanner means that if you aren't reliably using Deep Chem or Chemfuel in a colony and decide to run this mod, you're essentially nerfing the ground penetrating scan, as the materials you actually want, like plasteel or steel, now have an additional dud resource in the pool for the scanner to potentially roll on. From here on, if you want a functional resource at least, you're going to need to send this Deep Chem to either a biofuel refinery, which allows you to make 70 Chemfuel from 35 Deep Chem, or you can use the other new building, a Deep Chem refinery, which automates the process for you, gets a better ratio of 3 Chemfuel per Deep Chem versus the 2:1 of the manual refinery, but comes at the cost of consuming more than 3 times the power of a biofuel refinery. These Deep Chem refineries cannot be moved around like a pump jack, so you're going to want them somewhere safe and secure. At 200 steel and 4 components a pop, they aren't exactly cheap to be left exposed, and to match the output of a single pump jack, you're going to need 5 of these bad boys. Oddly, despite the graphic of them burning fuel at the top of their stack, they produce absolutely no heat if indoors and fully roofed. My headcanon is that the chimney is so tall that the roof goes around it rather than directly over the top of it. Now, with each of these burning 600 watts of power and the pump jack itself needing 300, you're using almost an entire geothermal generator's worth of electricity just for this setup. So what's the upside to it? Chemfuel powered generators. How many of you forgot that these even existed? Taking 30 fuel every 6.5 days, they provide 1,000 watts of power. That ratio may not seem exactly mind-blowing, until you look at the numbers that deep chem deposits can actually spawn with. With 300 deep chem per tile, and spawning anywhere from 20 to 40 tiles worth of the resource, if you're using deep chem refineries, that suddenly becomes 18,000 to 36,000 chemfuel per scanned deposit. Per scanned deposit. The tanks included with this mod store 1,500 chemfuel as standard, so if you're going to invest into this as a power source, you're going to need a room just for tanks. Compared to the refineries, you'll need to make sure that these generators are kept unroofed, or if you're living in a horrifically cold biome, use them as the world's noisiest, brightest and least practical radiators, by placing one in each colonist bedroom. Just don't mind the smoke or the lightheaded feeling. One of the nice things included with Chemfuel Expanded is that the pipe network will feed into buildings that make use of chemfuel to automate its delivery, like the pod launcher. It also opens up more frequent opportunities to do the old faithful of a Hail Mary delivery of flammable liquid into a group of raiders, before throwing a couple of mortar shells their way to trigger it, and you'll have all of the chemfuel in the world to make incendiary shells and IEDs. In the next video, I'll cover a perfect pairing with Chemfuel Expanded, Appliances Expanded. Because it adds so many structures of its own and integrates with a lot of other mods, it really deserves its own rundown rather than being a simple suggestion. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching, folks. If you have any other mods you'd like to see a full breakdown for, or suggestions of mods you'd like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, I might get around to them. I'll be back again soon with another Rimworld mod rundown. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. Take care.